What is up, everybody? Liam Murphy here, back hopefully to build some more winners. I'm on vacation in Miami, so don't have my normal setup. My microphone is my camera, so I'm gonna need some help if you guys can hear me at all, or if I need to connect my AirPods. All right. As said, Liam Murphy here, going to be doing, as I do Friday, building some Underdog pick'em slips. Last week, we built some winners. Hopefully, you tailed. As always, you should be making your own decisions. Either build the slips you agree with me, or if you don't agree with me. As I said, I'm in Miami this weekend. So do not have my normal setup, my normal monitors, my normal microphone. So production quality is going to be a little bit worse. You got the camera angle at me, but hopefully we're still giving you some great information. To review last week's two slips we built before I jumped into reviewing kind of like the best ball landscape, you should really go back and watch last week's show. You can skip the pick'em portion, so like the first 20 minutes, if you're into best ball, because I talked a lot of best ball stuff there. But Blake says, thank you for helping me get through the workday. Of course, man. I make a lot of long form content, great content to work and listen to. So last week we had two slips. One of them hit. We actually went 9 out of 10 of our picks last week we hit. So unfortunately, if you get one wrong and you don't insure, like we did not, you lose the slip. But our picks were TJ Hawkinson over 49.5 receiving yards. He played like a dog last week, got that easily. Jameson Williams over 15.5 receiving yards off the bye, got that pretty easily. He also had a touchdown wiped out. He's also blocking his ass off, and him being as fast as he is really helps spring long runs down the field. So he's going to play. And I think people worrying about DPJ and Jameson Williams are just misguided. DK Metcalf over 63.5 receiving yards hit on both slips. It was actually kind of a sweat until one of the last drives of the game where he got targeted a bunch of times, but he got 98, cleared that easily. Trey Palmer, 19.5 receiving yards, just barely got over that, 21. He also had like a 24-yard catch wiped off, so could have cleared that easily. Kyle Phillips, over 2 receptions. He got 3, a little bit of a sweat. But yeah, I mean, as I've been saying, we don't want to always be taking just like, the big guys in fantasy. Tyreek Hill, Jamar Chase, whatever. You see, I built a slip with Jameson Williams, 15.5, Trey Palmer, 19.5, Kyle Phillips, over 2 receptions, right? These are not fantasy studs. Most people playing fantasy football don't even know some of these players. But by looking at the data of how much these guys were playing, I thought they were good bets. The other slip also had Palmer and Metcalf, so use those on both. It also, like, one of the best lines on the board was probably Jalen Reagor under 21.5 receiving yards. He got a whopping 0. Bijan Robinson over 52.5 rushing yards, I think it was, something like that. Got that easily. And the only guy to let us down was Tony Pollard. Now, I will say the Tony Pollard 69.5, it's a really high line. I really don't like lines like that on studs, which are bumped up for matchup. And we should know as a fantasy community that, the Cowboys are playing the Panthers this week. They played the Giants last week. Most people just think both those teams are bad, so it is what it is. But the Giants play man defense and the Panthers play zone. And so CD Lamb against man defense has been like a world beater. He's off the charts against man defense, which the Giants run. So it made sense that they did the pass game there. Against zone defense, he's still very good. He's CD Lamb, but he's not as good. And so it is kind of more of a Tony Pollard week to me, just because how the Panthers play defense, which matters. Yes, some big news hit. I actually didn't get to watch last night's game. I did listen to the last 3 quarters on my drive to Miami, but looks like we lost Mark Andrews for the season. Looks like we lost Joe Burrow for the season. No, I don't think. I mean, a guy like T. Higgins is probably mostly dead because he doesn't separate, he doesn't get open, he's good at jump balls. And so, can a bad quarterback throw a jump ball touchdown? Yes, he can. That can help him. But I'm not ready to say Jamar Chase is over. Is it worse for Jamar Chase? Absolutely. It's a downgrade. Where would he go in fantasy drafts if we knew he was injured? If Joe Burrow was out for the season at the start of the year? Probably the back end of the first, second round at worst. He'd go higher than Devontae Adams. So drops him from the 102 to, I don't know, the 112, the 1. And we know, I'll try to be close to the. My mic? Ugh. Let me try to connect my AirPods. Is my audio choppy for others too? What do we got, guys? Facts or no? My Wi-Fi is probably pretty weak. Anyways, Jamar Chase can still get peppered with targets is the point. I'm on hotel Wi-Fi, so probably not the best. So we're going to try to keep this video short. We can get more into the fantasy fallout of the injuries later, but sorry for those guys. Let's just get into. All right, let's make a little thing here. We got that going. Just a little disclaimer in case anyone's checking this for the first time. So, going to try to build the pick'em slips quickly. It's all anyone cares about, anyways. Hopefully, we pick some winners. As always, I want to have Fantasy Life's utilization reports, pretty essential resource. And I also like to have open in my Discord. You can find this link under. Best ball resources. But I like to have open the ESPN analytics because it's a numerical way of assessing how good some of these guys are. And generally, it seems to be successful to short these guys, take unders on these guys here if they are offered. Anyways, let's get into the games. Pickett and the Browns. Jaylen Warren over rushing yards, over receiving yards. I like them both. Just a player I like to bet on. He's explosive. Probably not going to be one of my favorite lines. Again, we like to try to pick off some low-hanging fruit, but 44% of the rush attempts, he was named the starter, quote-unquote. Doesn't change him and Najee's outlook. But the point is, Najee has 42.5. Jaylen Warren's at 38.5. They're both getting a similar amount of attempts. 16 for Najee last week, 15 for Warren, 2 receptions versus 3. So equal rushing splits and a lower line. So I like the rushing yards over against a team playing Dorian something Thompson, not a good quarterback. It's a tough defense, but it's a much better pass rush than anything else. So we'll keep this one in, and we'll remove it if we find a better spot. Don't think I can do anything with the Browns. The only one I'm tempted on is Jerome Ford rushing attempts. Looking at the Browns, Jerome Ford in back-to-back weeks he's been trending up in rushing attempts as he gets healthier. 60% last week, pretty nice. Kareem Hunt was at 34%. Pierre Strong removed from the offense last week. So I don't hate a guy getting between 17 and 20 rushing yards, just needing to average 3 rushing, 3 yards attempt. So kind of like both of these, but we'll come back. We'll come back to this game. Again, we're going to try to build these slips quickly. I'll try not to be wordy. I kind of do like the Njoku over just because what we've seen with the Browns is they just like run their screen game through him, and 4 or 5 screens, he can run 2 of those for 10 yards, and he's almost there. Chargers at Green Bay. Eckler, quietly, his season's a little bit of a disappointment, but that's largely injury related. His routes have been solid. Targets have been solid. Raw targets of 5 and 7 in back-to-back weeks. Between 14 and 19 rushing yards. The Packers are a team you can rush on. So I kind of like the rushing yards over. I mean, I definitely like Austin Eckler, 55.5, compared to Jerome Ford, 56.5. Especially because Green Bay, it's easier to run on. So a low line for him. He doesn't go over that line a lot, but I think he can against this team. We'll keep it in. We'll remove it if we need to. I like to look through the whole lobby until we build our slips. The passing game of the Packers is all probably like a decent bet. I just don't know who to pick, and Aaron Jones is the worst. Las Vegas at Miami. Miami off the bye. Jacobs, with the new coach, has seen between 26 and 27 rush attempts against 2 much worse teams. The real question is if they are trailing by a lot, how many rushing attempts are they giving Jacobs then? Are they going to still run the ball? If Las Vegas can get any sort of lead, I would think they would run the piss out of the ball. So I like rushing attempts or rushing yards for Jacobs. But again, we'll try to find some lower lines. Unfortunately, no Achane lines at the moment. Those cowards. I would have hit the over, though, on Achane. Oh, that's all we got. We got Achane scoring a touchdown. Yes or no? I mean, touchdown, 2. It's tempting. 4, actually. But no, we're not going to do that. I do want to build a slip 1 week of just only spicy ones, which are usually touchdowns. Would be fun. Let's close these. Arizona at Houston is a game that's going to be stacked a lot in daily fantasy for good reason. Want to check in on Arizona and the wideouts. Marquise was at 100%. Michael Wilson was at 92%. Rondale Moore was at 75%. And we saw sprinkling of the other guys. Rondale, of course, playing the slot. And McBride was at 80% of routes. So not a ton of routes for McBride, but he's good. He could be the top pass catcher. Kind of like him. Kind of like Marquise. I like the passing yards on Kyler. Arizona is going to be, I mean, Houston's going to be without, um, Houston's going to be without Noah Brown this week. And that is just going to lead to a concentrated offense to me of mainly Nico, Tank, and Dalton Schultz. Robert Woods is the chalk to see the fourth most routes, and whatever, some targets. And I mean, the real question is, does John Mechie get any of the Noah Brown work, or does it all go to Robert Woods? So that's something to sort through. Dalton Schultz has been just a strong 80%. This is a good matchup for tight ends and this passing game. Let's see here. Tank Dell, just close your eyes and bet the over kind of player. Very talented. Dalton Schultz. You know, ESPN Analytics, when we look at the top guys in the league, they have Nathaniel Dell as one of the best in the league. So we're betting on the players that the numbers think are good, and my eye test thinks is good. So I don't think people are hip to just how good he is. I like Schultz too. I like Nico as well. Nico also, as you can tell, 7th in the NFL. Open score, we care about a lot too. That's where Tank Dell really kills it. And the passing touchdowns for CJ Stroud were like hammered over this week, where I think it's like he's a heavy favorite to throw 2 touchdowns, which we can guess is going to go to someone, either Tank, Nico, or Schultz most of the time. So I don't really hate any of the touchdown bets on them, but you know, risky bets. Arizona. Where did Michael Wilson go? Here, he's down here for some reason. Yeah, I don't know. We'll give the Arizona offense another week. We have McBride in there. Tennessee at Jacksonville. I mean, it's a decent spot for Derrick Henry, but you can also probably just short him any given week. We know Hopkins is going to get a lot of targets. We know Chig is not that good. In fact, one of the worst in the NFL. Tied for 9th. So the under on Chig I kind of like. I think I would take under on yards, but I don't think it's one of my favorite spots. Zay Jones, I don't know what's going on with him. Domestic battery. Honestly, it's like a decent spot for Ridley. Ridley has not been good, but even though Tennessee's not as much as a pass funnel this year, they still kind of are. Dallas at Carolina. Man, I mean, a little bit of risk of Tony Pollard is you're going to see some Rico Dowdle. Now, I do think the Rico Dowdle usage last week was weighted towards garbage time, but this is concerning. Saw 30% of snaps, 40% of the rush attempts. Tony Pollard down to 52% of the rushing attempts. Tony Pollard, again, did play more when the game was competitive, but we're not really expecting this one. Again, a really high line for him. I do think it's a better spot for him this week, though. But out of principle, I don't think we can get him in there. The Rico Dowdle rushing yards, I mean, honestly, I do think he'll be around, I don't know, 7 to 10 rushing attempts as like a floor, unless this game is competitive. which makes me tempted on 27.5 rushing yards. Adam, rewind to the beginning. I already talked about Chase. Again, my Wi-Fi's not that best this week, so not the best time to go into full in depth. Thielen in garbage time, we've seen light it up. So I don't think it's a bad line. 54.5 on him. Probably won't. Probably not going to take that though. Chicago at Detroit. Justin Fields is back. Significant. He can speed up games with his legs. Also probably lower some of the pass catchers. Goff is, a good bet for passing yards any given week, I think. Chicago is a bad pass defense. They have some pieces, but this is the Montgomery revenge game too. So I kind of like the higher on the touchdown for him, which, brings it from a 20x to a 25x. So a little bit more times your money. I just kind of feel like you give your goal line back a touchdown chance against his old team. That just seems like a really big Dan Campbell thing to do. So let's do that. And then I'm going to build one more slip and get out of here. I also like the Amon-Ra receiving yards. It's just kind of like gets there every week. Chicago's a team, again, that's easier to pass on. So yeah, our first one is Warren over 38.5, Eckler over 55.5, McBride over 55.5, Tank Dell over 56.5, and Montgomery to score a touchdown. Okay, that got removed. We got refresh. All right. Well, looks like they were listening. We made some good points. I don't know why that happened. But that's not in there anymore. So we got to find another one. They're not giving us any Jameson Williams lines. They've wised. Oh, here it is. He was at 55% of the routes, season high, 11%. Target per out run, not great, but lower than pass. High ADOT in a shootout game. Again, he scored a touchdown, wiped off the board due to holding. And I think that will reward his blocking. So I don't hate the 22.5 receiving yards literally any week. Yeah, let's do it again. All right. We gotta get these slips in before my internet drops. So first slips in there if you want a tail. Of course, make your own decisions if you do not like any of the lines or want to swap, or if you don't want to do a pick 5, or if you want to insure. Do what you would like. Let's build one more slip here. I think Gibson has been ruled out, but we're just going to skip that game. Tampa San Fran. I like the passing game for the 49ers. Let's check in what they did off the bye. Ayuk, 84% of routes. Debo, 71. It's kind of low. And Ronnie Bell, 13. Willie Snead, 6. Juwan Jennings, 40% of the routes. Kittle ran a route on 90% with everyone back. So that's a lot. Yeah, I like the passing game. I like CMC. I mean, just low line on CMC. Tampa is easier to pass on due to, I guess, just Vita Vea. They run a zone. They're getting beat deep. They're getting beat really everywhere. Try like all the San Fran pieces, honestly. Debo and Kittle specifically have low reception yards, but the issue with taking a couple of them is any player can house a long touchdown, and then that hurts the ends the drive for them, you know. Gino at the Rams. The 20.5 rushing yards for Charbonnet is decent. I think the Lockett line is decent. The JSN line's kind of high. Shorting Royce Freeman seems like a decent idea. Pretty sure Henderson's playing. Stafford is back. Anyways, let's get out of here. So, new offensive coordinator for Buffalo. Potentially they run the ball, but the Jets have a bunch of good corners, honestly. So, more of a Kincaid spot to me. Talented player, low line because he's a tight end. Diggs did score. Diggs went off against the Jets week 1. Like 30 fantasy points. So I don't hate the receiving yards for him either. It's possible they lean on the run game. They just kind of have to let that be James Cook. I think Brees and Garrett Wilson are decent bets, but Garrett Wilson is banged up. Otherwise, I would for sure take the receiving yards on him. Let's see what it says about him. I know my boy Ron had a tweet about him. Let's see what he says. Shut up, Ron. Maybe he's got too many tweets, though. Well, I don't know. Maybe I made that up. I definitely saw someone say he was banged up. I also think the Conklin line is like really low. Conklin been around 70% of the routes every game this season. So give me that. Okay. We got these two dudes. Let's add in some other ones too. Let's this time take tempted on Schultz. A little tight end slip. Let's build a tight end slip. So we got 3 of the best young tight ends. Kincaid, McBride, Conklin's in there too. And Laporta still getting work. And a low line because he had a bad week last week. What do you have? 40 receiving yards. Still fine. All right, this is our tight end nation pick. again, tail at your own risk, but hopefully we build some more winners. I will say there's not as many of the, like last week we picked off some guys who I just thought were playing a lot and priced bad. Like getting a guy running a route 90% of the time in a good matchup with like a 18 receiving line prop is just, pretty nice. And then we got Kyle Phillips, who we knew was going to be in there 50% or so, but getting strong targets. So, all right, guys, that's what I got for this week. I will be back on Tuesday at the latest, probably rip something Monday for the BBM leaderboard show. Again, this is not my normal setup if you are used to that, but please hit the like, the subscribe, and have a great weekend.